Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe it's all about them and they can do what they want when they want. And in today's episode, it's all about horrible parents, guys, who think they know best. We've got kids body checking service dogs, Karens harassing people in public, and Opie tells a story where this smug Karen puts her kids' lives in danger and she regrets it big time. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So here's a bit of backstory. I live in the UK, and a close friend of mine was adopted by a lovely old couple who also adopted a girl who had been blinded. She also had major scarring around her eyes. The couple also had big dogs, the latest of which was a cross between a half husky, half German shepherd that had puppies with an Irish wolfhound. So very big, very hairy, and absolutely gorgeous dogs. They had one of these puppies trained to be a blind assistance dog for their blind daughter. During this process, the dog got very close with the blind girl and very protective, which is important. Anyways, on to the story. The blind girl will be Zoe, and my friend will be Brienne for simplicity's sake. And here's the incident. I had gone round to Brienne's house to see her to get help with some schoolwork I was doing. After finishing the work, me, Brienne, and Zoe decide to go for a walk and take Echo, the assistance dog, with us to give him his daily exercise. As this would involve going outside, Zoe puts on a headscarf and very large dark sunglasses to hide her scars, as well as taking her white cane. Together, we walk to a nearby park/playing field, and we let Echo off the lead to let him run around. After about 20 minutes, we notice a woman and her son come to the field. That's when I call Echo over and I put his lead back on him, and also put his service vest on, which is a high visibility vest that says "Service Dog, Do Not Pet" written in big letters on both sides. It's obvious he's working. Echo, being very well trained, immediately went into service dog mode and was helping Zoe navigate around the field. We went and sat on some benches outside the play area, about 10 meters away from the woman who we'll call Karen from this point on. Echo sits down about 2 meters away directly in front of our bench. We're just chilling and chatting when out of nowhere we hear squealing and running footsteps. Of course, Karen's son had seen Echo. Before we could react, the kid had sprinted over and charges straight into Echo, grabbing him in a bear hug and wouldn't let go. Echo yelped and he was frantically wriggling as the kid tried to pin him to the ground while shouting, "Mommy, Mommy, look at this dog." Karen didn't even move or even look up from her phone. By now, Echo was in obvious distress, and Brienne just stood and grabbed the kid, lifting him off the dog and putting him down away from him while telling him, "Please do not touch our dog." At this, the kid screamed and he shouts incoherently. And as soon as Brienne puts him down, he punches her straight in the stomach, which made her drop him, and he tried to tackle Echo again. This time, however, he was ready, and he ran away, causing the kid to trip and start crying. And I do want to note that this sounds like a lot happened, but in reality, it was in the span of about a minute or so. As if summoned by the cries of her son, Karen leaps to her feet and she began screaming at us saying, "What the F are you doing? I can't believe you'd hurt a child. Don't you dare touch my son again." All of this shouting was freaking Zoe out, and she starts shaking, and Brienne says, "Ma'am, your child attacked my sister's service dog. Please, can you take him away?" Karen then looks at Echo's vest, and she said, "Well, you shouldn't bring your service dog to a public park then, should you?" Unfortunately, Zoe chooses this moment to speak. She says, "Guys, can we get out of here?" And this is where it gets worse. As soon as Karen saw Zoe's headscarf and glasses, she launches into a tirade about disrespect and terrorists, and she says, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." She then grabbed Zoe's headscarf and glasses. She pulled them off of her and threw them on the ground, and two things happened nearly instantly. Karen began screaming in horror at the scars on Zoe's face, and the kid launches himself at Echo again, tackling this poor dog. This time, Echo just snapped. He had been attacked and hurt, and now his child was being threatened. He gets up, standing in front of Zoe, showing his teeth and barking. Still screaming, Karen pulls out her phone and she calls the police while dragging her child away. And she's yelling at us saying, "You're all going to jail for bringing that into a public place and having it attack my son." Zoe was understandably traumatized, so we rang my friend's father to come and help us. The father and the police arrive at the same time. Father came over to talk, and the police officer took Karen's statement and then came to talk to us. After talking to Brianne and the father, the police officer asked if Echo had bitten the child. We all said no, just knocked him over trying to defend us. The police officer then said that the kid had scratches all on his arms. Well, it turns out, while waiting for the police, the woman had deliberately scratched her child to make it look like the dog had bitten him. While we're being questioned, we had been taken about 5 meters away from the bench. The woman had let her kid go back to the park, and Zoe was still sitting on the bench with Echo laying next to her. The kid decides to try again, and he comes charging over to Echo. This time, however, the father steps in and told him that he can't touch the dog as he was a service dog. Well, Karen sees the father talking to her child and she flies into a rage, shouting about creepy old men always talking to kids and proceeding to spit at him. Because of that, the cops come and grab and detain her. The whole time, she was shouting how Echo was an aggressive dog and he needs to be put down. Long story short, I don't know if she got fined or any jail time, to be honest, because the police told us we could leave. I don't care what happens to her. All I know is my friend Zoe hated going anywhere after that. Hopefully the kid learns to not be so entitled when he grows up. Yeah, in my opinion, as long as he's around his psycho mom, I don't have super high expectations that he'll grow up not super duper entitled. And yes, mom was a little nutso, guys, like pushing a blind person, calling them names, and on purpose scratching her own son to play victim. Oh my goodness. Like, it just terrifies me that this child is under her care. And this person says, "My cousin has a service dog, and some of the stories she tells, while not as dramatic as this one, are still mind-boggling to me. It's like there's a certain kind of person actually attracted to messing with service dogs in marked vests." And if you think what that mom did was over the top, listen to this next post. So to start, I'm only 15 years old, but I volunteer at a horse riding school. I help with little kids' lessons, and I look after the horses and stuff. That said, we have this one horse who I'll call Dangerous Horse. He's one of our tall horses, around 6 feet. He's not suitable to be ridden by children, and can also be dangerous by bolting or throwing people off. Anyways, now that we've got that sorted out, let's get to the actual story. So one day, this entitled woman and her stupid kid come to the stables on one of our open days we hold during the school holidays. Basically, the kids come along and they get to ride a bit and then have a tour of the stables and give the horses treats and stuff like that. Well, this stupid kid immediately runs over to Dangerous Horse, who was in a place that the stupid kid wasn't meant to be. The kid starts shouting that he wants to ride this one, which spooked the horse and the other horses. The kid's screaming and he repeats himself saying, "I want to ride this one, I want to ride this one." To which I say, "I'm sorry, but he can't be ridden by children, he's very dangerous." The stupid kid says he doesn't look very dangerous. He then goes to pet Dangerous Horse, but the horse panicked and spun around away from him. He then says, "Why doesn't he want to play? I just want to pet him." I respond, "You have to be respectful of all the horses. If they don't want to play, they won't. He's scared at the moment." The stupid kid then lets out a blood-curdling scream saying, "Mom, come over here." His mom then appears around the corner and comes marching up to him. She then says, "What's going on here?" To which the boy says, "She won't let me pet this horse." Before I could explain, saying he's very dangerous, the woman cuts me off and she says, "If my son wants to pet the horse, I don't see any problem with it, so let him. I'm his mother. I give him permission." That's when I say, that's not how it works. You can't just give your child permission to pet horses that aren't meant to be touched. The horse doesn't want to be petted because your son scared him. The mom just responds, listen, my son is gentle. Do you think he's scary to a big animal like this? Go on, go pet him, son. So the kid goes to pet him one last time, and Dangerous Horse swings his head up, hitting Stupid Kid on the chin. The kid's lucky he didn't get knocked out. Of course, the kid and mom leave with him crying. Later on, I hear some commotion out front by where the lessons are. I go around to see what's going on because I'm curious. When I get around the corner, I can see Karen and her stupid kid having an argument with the rider about which horse they want to ride. The kids got to choose from 5 ponies on which one they wanted to ride. The stupid kid didn't want a pony, and he demanded that he get to ride Dangerous Horse, the biggest horse. The woman argued with the riding instructor about this for around 10 minutes, until picking up her son, who is now crying and taking him my direction. The woman storms past me and right up to Dangerous Horse's stable. She tried to open the door, but we have these tricky lock things on them, so horses can't open them, which meant she couldn't either. She then demanded I open the door and get the Dangerous Horse out for her son to ride. She screams at me saying, "Why are you standing there? Help me get this stupid animal out for my son." I tell her, "You can't do that, he's not part of the pony rides." Karen says, "He is now. Hurry up, I paid and my son wants to ride him." At this point, the riding instructor appears with Dangerous Horse's saddle and bridle. She tells me to tack him up quickly for a ride. The stupid kid then gets all excited, and Karen had the biggest smirk on her face, assuming she meant him. I tacked Dangerous Horse up and took him out of his box. He was 3 times the height of this kid. I knew that riding instructor wouldn't actually let the kid on the horse, but it was amusing to watch the kid's excitement. Karen then says, "Okay, well, where do you get on?" The riding instructor says out loud, "Well, we usually get on just around the corner, but you're gonna get on here." She said that looking at me, so I knew what to do. She then hands me my helmet, and Karen says, "Why are you giving that to her? My son is the one that's riding." The riding instructor then tells her, "I've told you 100 times. Your son is too small for this horse, and he's dangerous." She then helps me get on, and I ride into the arena with Dangerous Horse. I was the only one in there at the time, but Stupid Kid follows me whining, being stopped at the gate by the riding instructor. And remember when I said that Dangerous Horse liked to throw people and bolt? I meant it. As soon as we were in the arena, Dangerous Horse bolted and started bucking. It looked like a rodeo or something, and he did it for a couple of minutes. When he had stopped, I looked over to Karen, who had the most amusing look of shock on her face. It was brilliant. She then had the nerve to say, "Why were you gonna let my son on that dangerous animal? He would have died." She then grabbed her son and left. And it's safe to say, I don't think she'll be bothering us for a while. Again, gotta love how Karen tried to flip it on everyone and was like, "What? You wanted my son to ride that monster?" Like seriously, how stupid can people be? Like if someone says something is dangerous, then it's frickin' dangerous. Like I am actually terrified for that kid because if mom doesn't recognize the dangers around her son and just gives into what he wants, one day it might end in disaster. And guys, the scary thing is, some people are more willing to scream lawsuit than look after their kids properly. Here's some backstory. I'm a voluntary firefighter in a small town with a population of around 18,000 people. I only say that because we have an artificial ice rink, where the ice is created by an ammonia cooling system. And for anyone who doesn't know, ammonia is pretty bad stuff. It can cause tracheal burns, bronchial and alveolar edema, and airway destruction if inhaled. So since we knew about this, we often had training sessions with our fire department on this sports facility, practicing on how to deal with the worst case scenario. That said, this happened last summer. We received an alarm with a text that said, "Strong odor in sports facility at this location at around 7 p.m. And to be honest, everyone that received this alarm knew exactly that a huge pile of crap just hit the fan. Since we're all voluntary firefighters, we weren't at our fire station, but we had to drive there first. We arrive at the location shortly after, and we could all smell the ammonia as soon as we left our truck. It was a bad stench that hurt your nose and immediately made you tear up. We all knew this was bad, and we were fully exposed to this hazardous stuff. Before we even get the order from our team leader, we geared up with our respiratory protection device. We realized pretty fast that we were way understaffed. Because it was the middle of the week, around 5 junior soccer teams were currently training on these sports facilities. It was somewhere around 200 kids and a few of their coaches. So we received orders from our fire chief, the guy in charge. He says, Squad 1, OP, you're in charge. Set the perimeter for inner danger area and decontamination. And to give you a bit of overview, the situational plan of the whole area includes Number 1, the green area. That was the location of our mobile headquarters, and also the waiting area for all firefighters that hadn't received a task yet. Number 2, the yellow area. That's the outer danger area where no civilian was allowed in. Number 3, the red area. This is the inner danger area, where no one's allowed to enter without proper gear, nor leave that area without decontamination. This becomes important later. And number 4, the black area. This is the direct surroundings of the cooling system facilities where the ammonia was leaking. So this was the area where only specialists were allowed in, with those full-body hazard suits that you all know from movies and TV shows. So with that said, I've sent a few guys to put up barriers to send people out of the yellow zone. Since we're all voluntary firefighters, we didn't have the proper gear for this kind of event. So we had to wait until the real deals, the professional firefighters, showed up. So my job was to basically stand on my decontamination zone and wait, still in full gear and with a breathing device on my back. After a few minutes, the pros arrive and I help them prepare their gear. 2 of them suited up in those fancy full-body hazard suits. And after a short briefing by the chief, they walk away towards the cooling facility. A few minutes pass, and then this happened. Enter Karen with 2 of her kids. This absolute and complete Karen walked towards me, inside the black zone, which, to remind you, was where the ammonia was leaking. On her left arm was her 6-ish-year-old boy, still in full gear, coughing his lungs out, and carried on her right arm was a toddler, around 2 or 3 years old, and the child was whimpering. The Karen then says, "Ahem, excuse me," to which I respond, "Lady, what the hell are you doing?" The woman then proceeds to ask, "How long will this little training thing of yours take? I have to bring my kids home for dinner." I then say, "Are you out of your mind? You're in a contaminated area. Get over here now." But the woman's not listening. She says, "I need you to open these barriers your buddies put up so I can drive my car out." I then scream at her saying, "Lady, this is not a training exercise. You're putting yourself and your kids in danger. Look at them. Get your ass over here right now." At this point, the toddler starts crying, and the boy says to his mom, "Mommy, my throat hurts, and I can't breathe." Hearing him say that, I wanted to run into the zone to grab the kids, but I couldn't risk it. If I would have jumped over the barrier, she would have maybe tried to run away, directly towards the cooling facility. Also, she could have dropped her child because I definitely would have tackled her. Luckily for all of us, the 2 guys that entered the facility earlier were on their way back out. They saw Karen and they stormed towards her. They grabbed the kids and Karen and they dragged them towards the decontamination zone. Of course, Karen tried to resist, screaming at them to let me go or I'll talk to the chief about you. But these pro dudes are merciless. One guy took the kids and the other grabbed Karen by the back of her neck and pulled her towards me. She screamed and tried to kick the dude, but he was pretty unimpressed. The chief then comes running because he heard her screaming, and he says, "What the F is going on here?" That's when I say, "Oh, this woman walked past the upper barrier and she wanted to drive her car out." The chief, towards Karen, says, "Are you out of your effing mind? You just put your kids' lives in danger because of your stupid car." The Karen was shrieking at this point, and she says, well, he wouldn't open the barrier and the other guy attacked me. He grabbed me really hard by the back of the neck and he starts shoving me really hard. That's kidnapping and I will sue you. The chief just tells her, go ahead, I'll call the police for you. He then turns around and walks back towards our trucks, only to return a couple of minutes later with 2 cops. In the meantime, we gave the boy and the toddler a breathing mask, and EMTs were checking them. The Karen was still furious, and she even tried to kick one of the EMTs. That's when we hear a cop say, lady, shut your mouth and get over here. And this was my chance. I had to speak up. I say to him, I'm sorry, I can't let her out of the zone. She first needs to be decontaminated. Hearing me say that, the woman gasped, and her face turned from deep red into a panic white. She says, what does that mean, decontaminated? Am I in danger? The chief knew exactly what I was onto, and he turned to the officer and he said, correct. We can't let anyone out of the danger zone without decontamination. I'll get some female firefighters to help with her. He again walked away, and Karen sputtering at this point saying, What does he mean? Answer me. That's when I tell her, well, since you've been exposed to a dangerous and hazardous material, we need you to completely undress yourself and step into the decontamination. We'll help you wash down all the potential dangerous substances you might be exposed to. And note, this is in fact the process we had to follow in such a scenario. Everyone, including our personnel, had to go through this. We had to strip down, put clothes into a hazard bag, step into the shower, and wash for a couple of minutes. I also want to note that the water in the shower comes directly from a fire hydrant and it's freezing cold. There's also no separate shower booth for women or no special treatment. And for time-saving reasons, we don't even put up a privacy protection. This is when one of the cool dudes who had a hazard suit on grinned at Karen, and he said to her, I can wash down your back if you want. Karen was speechless, and she's in pure shock hearing that. She says, you can't do that, I have rights. To which I respond, sorry lady, I can't help you, that's the procedure, you've put this all on yourself. The chief comes back after a short time, and he says, sorry lady, bad news. All of the female firefighters are currently taken by other tasks. She just stared at the chief and almost hyperventilated. She couldn't say a single word. We all saw how bad this was, and the chief broke our charade up. The chief then says, the good news is, we've resolved the situation and you're no longer in danger, but the EMTs will take your kids to a hospital just to be sure. I jump over the barrier and took Karen by the arm. Cool dude and me escort her to the police officers since they wanted to chat with her. The cool dude didn't press charges, even though she kicked him multiple times. Neither did the EMTs. A few weeks later, I see one of the police officers again at another emergency, and we had a small chat. He told me they pressed charges because of her endangering her kids, and unfortunately, being a volunteer firefighter, we have to deal with that kind of people way too often. So if you ever see a firefighter or EMT at work, show them the respect they deserve. Holy moly, I'm just glad the kids were all right and unharmed in the end. Like, this is just mind-boggling, beyond stupid behavior. And guys, this person says it the best. They comment, holy crap, this woman needs to be whacked in the head with a cartoon mallet for endangering her kids like this. Ammonia will burn the hair off your skin and then some, and that's not even in high concentrations. That said, I love the reaction when Karen was told she'd have to go through decontamination while having a person she doesn't know help her. And the funny thing is, OP knew it the whole time and decided to troll her. They comment, well, since she wasn't directly exposed to the ammonia, lucky for her, I knew that we didn't have to decontaminate her. I just wanted her to freak out a bit. So let me tell you about the most entitled person I've ever met. I'm sitting in the lunchroom at work, eating my soup, just watching some videos on my phone, and some woman who I've never met before enters the lunchroom. And without even looking, she drops her baby carrier, diaper bag, and shopping bag at the table where I'm eating. The baby carrier catches the edge of the bowl, throwing delicious pea soup into the air, onto the baby carrier and all over her shopping bags, which had been set down on a chair. It was actually really impressive, and I'm kind of bummed that no one else saw it happen. Before the pea soups even landed, the lady's left the lunchroom and she's gone to talk to our boss. I take a look at the baby, and it doesn't look like the baby got any soup on him. And he isn't burned, so my good deed for the day's done. I leave the mess as I only have 30 minutes for lunch, and this C-word has just wasted 10 minutes of it. I'm not about to spend the rest of my lunch cleaning her mess. I head out the door to grab some McDonald's across the street. I wanted to let Karen know what she did on my way out, but she was in my boss's office with the doors closed and I was hungry. I get back from McDonald's with a minute to spare, and I get back to my desk. I get back, log in, and immediately my supervisor comes over. And he gives me the "we're not supposed to eat at our desk" talk, and I tell him what happened. He then walks over to the lunchroom and he peeks inside. He chuckles a bit and then turns back to me and says, "Enjoy your lunch." Once I'm about halfway through my McChicken, my supervisor tells me to go to the boss's office, so I do. My boss and a very pissed off woman are sitting there. My boss asked why I dumped my soup all over her things. I respond, "I didn't." He then says, "Weren't you the one eating pea soup in the lunchroom?" I say, "Yes." He then says, "So how did her stuff get covered in pea soup?" To which I respond, "Well, I was sitting down eating and she walked in. She then dropped the baby carrier on my food while I was eating it. The soup went everywhere and I wasn't about to spend the rest of my lunch cleaning it or go the rest of my day without eating because some person whom I've never met is throwing babies around the lunchroom." So I went across the street and I bought another lunch. Hearing me say that, the woman gets shrill. She shrieks and says, "He's lying. He did it on purpose and now all my new clothes are ruined. He could have burned my baby." She then says, "You're gonna pay me back for everything you destroyed, plus my carrier that's already covered in dry puke, plus my clothes, which is her fault, and my purse." And I want to note, there was no purse on the table. That's when I say, what could I possibly gain by dumping my soup on your things? You know what? F it. I then look at my boss and say, "Just go look under the baby carrier." He then says, "What's under the baby carrier?" I respond, "Proof that she's lying." The woman then gives me the most confused look I've ever seen someone make. It was a combination of "what are you talking about" and "why are you doing this to me?" I think she actually thought I did damage her stuff on purpose, and she couldn't believe that she could have done something so stupid. Which is funny, because there's been an unsupervised infant in the lunchroom for 30 minutes now. The woman chases after my boss, and I'm following right behind them. When we get to the lunchroom, a small crowd has gathered around the baby, and the boss asked everyone to clear out. The boss didn't even have to move the carrier. Sure enough, under the carrier, half sticking out, they find the paper towel I put down as a placemat, the plastic utensils I set out, the plate under my bowl, and the baggie of saltines I brought from home. My boss sighs and says, "Karen, go home." She says, "What about my stuff?" He says, "Take your things and go home." As it turns out, she was one of the supervisors who had been on mat leave since before I started. She had come in because her and the boss were friends, and she wanted to come by to show off all the clothes she had bought now that her figure came back. She blew her entire check on clothes that are now covered in pea soup and can't be returned. She took half of my McChicken on the way out and she threw it in the garbage. My boss gave me a McDonald's gift card that she keeps for rewards, and gave me an extra break to go get another McChicken. I start supervisor training next week, and I'm glad I don't have to work under Karen. Okay, so my big question is she still working there? Because 1, she left an unsupervised baby alone for half an hour while she complained about nonsense. 2, she blamed OP for her own stupidity. And 3, the most ridiculous one is she was so mad that she threw away OP's food into the garbage. Like, at the very least, if she's not fired, she does deserve a shoe to the head for that a-hole move. But guys, that's r/entitled people. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where a smug CEO gets taught a lesson he won't forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.